Welcome to episode 2 of me showing you all the sweaters that I knit before I started this YouTube channel. I'm going through all 37 sweaters that I have knitted and telling you the particulars of the yarn, the pattern that I used, how it worked out, do I still wear it, all those things. So if that is interesting to you, then let's get started. Hello, welcome to Show and Tell Meg. I'm Megan and I like to make things, and I particularly like to knit sweaters. I always have a sweater going, and this is the result of that. I tend to produce at least a few sweaters a year, usually more than that, and it has added up to quite a few sweaters over time. This first sweater started with a yarn purchase that was 100% influenced by the name of the color. This is my Ishnana cardigan. This is a pattern by Isolde Teague. I finished this sweater in 2017, and it took me about 4 months to knit, which felt like I had done a really good job because this was one of the first, or it was an earlier fingering weight sweater that I made. So this was a case of I bought this yarn from someone on Ravelry. They were destashing it, and this is Lorna's Laces Shepherd Sock in the kerfuffle colorway. So, I mean, I had to buy it, but it's a lovely color too. It is a really nice tonal, kind of grayed out purple, and it tends to work like a gray in my wardrobe. So that's pretty nice. The Ishnana is pretty cool. It comes with 2 different designs that you can knit in the same pattern. So it had this cable and lace design, or it had kind of an, I guess it was an Irish influenced just lace design. And I ended up picking the cable. That was my favorite of it, but the other pattern is nice too. I might eventually make that. And the cable is done down the middle of the sleeve as well, which I had never done before and I thought was pretty cool. It also has a cable on either side of the front button band, a little bit of cable and lace that echoes the back. So this took 1,250 yards to make. I did it my usual 3/4 sleeve. It's very fitted. It is waist length. And I happened to have these really cool, shiny, iridescent-y buttons. And I backed the button band with Rayon Petersham ribbon in a gray. And I think it looks really nice. Like I didn't have purple, so I just went with gray. And even these buttons, they sort of face up like purple, even though they are gray. And it's just because it sort of reflects what's around it. So I really, really love this sweater. This is another one of those that it's fingering weight, so it's comfortable to wear most of the time in the year here in Florida. And it's such a neutral-ish kind of color that it goes with a lot of things. So I find that I throw this in my bag quite a bit, even to this day. This next pattern is also lace. This was the first, what I would consider a complicated lace design that I ever knitted. This is Agatha by Andi Satterlund. I thought it was complicated then. It's not super complicated, to be honest. This lace is pretty easy, but it took multiple lace charts. So you have this kind of leafy lace in the front center, then you have this lattice kind of lace, and then you have a combination of the 2 of those on the back, and you have this slightly ribbed kind of detail all throughout the rest of the sweater. And then it has a separate lace pattern for the sleeves. I started this in December of 2014, and it ended up taking me 9 months. So this was an extremely intimidating pattern to very new knitter me. I had not made very many sweaters. I hadn't done anything with multiple lace charts that I had to keep track of, but I really liked this design on other people. I think that lace is still so pretty. And I had this yarn from my beloved Craftsy clearance, which is no more, but this is Cascade 220 Superwash Quattro. And so if you look close, it's not tonal, it's a twisted yarn that actually has 2 colors twisted together in the plies. And so it gives this kind of tonal mottled effect. And I didn't know anything about that at the time, but I can appreciate the yarn for what it is now. I just bought it because it was a pretty color and it was in the clearance. But this is the Lupin colorway, which is very much discontinued. I don't know if you can still find it secondhand or not, but It is a worsted weight, like Cascade 220 always is. This took me about 9 months to knit because it just intimidated the heck out of me and I wouldn't get very far. And then I really wanted to have these sleeves kind of cuff up a bit. I wanted to make sure that the sleeves were long enough to go like to here on my hands. And I definitely did overkill on that. Also, I had to really quickly decrease the sleeves. Like they were just too loose. And so I have this really strange, like leg of mutton shaped sleeve almost. It doesn't face up that way, but I wanted it to be tighter where the cuff was. And then I started the cuff too low and knit it too long. So I always wear this with the entire cuff rolled up like this. Which is fine. Like I always intended to like go back and fix that. I can't be bothered. It worked just fine. I just rolled the cuff back and that's how I wear it. I did back the button bands on this with a black Petersham ribbon. And I used these buttons that I got at Hobby Lobby that are quite over the top. They are shiny black and they have like black rhinestones around the outer edges. So not only are they faceted and very shiny, but they have that extra little glitter going on. And this was one of the first sweaters I ever did the backing on. And this is a good one to show that you really can't see it. I mean, it depends on the sweater. And if you look at those holes after I tell you that it has black on the back, you can see black through the holes. But if you button these, you don't see it at all. It's a very opaque button band. So if that's ever a concern for you, then just know, as long as it's a tight weave, you're not going to see that dark color through. And this is one, because of the sleeve length, I was a little bit disappointed with it when I made it. It's still pretty though, and if it is cold outside, I do wear it. But again, because it is a worsted weight, I don't get to wear it all that much, but I still think it came out really nice. The next sweater in my stack here was my first ever foray into trying out Squid School of Vintage Knitting patterns. So this is the Florist Bolero. It is a pattern by Sydney Craybaugh, and you can get it through her Patreon. And I just really loved the images that she came out with. I had seen her Patreon for a while, and this was one of the first ones that I was like, okay, I think I want to join because that's a really cute sweater. And I also liked it because it's a bolero, so it felt like less of a commitment than some of the like vintage style fingering weight long sweaters that she would design. This is also knitted in a worsted weight. So I knew it would be a quicker pattern and I could test out her system of sizing because her patterns are completely size inclusive. You measure your bust and waist, like she gives you a sheet. There's all these different measurements that you have to take. And then she assigns a letter to that measurement, like you do a little math and plug in numbers like a Mad Lib in her pattern. And so the pattern ends up being completely custom designed to you, which is really cool. And I just wanted to see how it worked. And I thought that this would be a quick stash busting project to try it out on. I made this in 1 month. I finished it in March of 2023. And I did do it as a stash bust. So I had 3 skeins of I Love This Wool from Hobby Lobby, which I think they've completely discontinued now, but it was 100% wool that they had in the store. And it's just a super basic stockinette bolero with this really cute lace design. And let me tell you, this lace was long. This is so many stitches to go around this thing. Like, oh, I remember that part of it. But overall, it was pretty easy to do. A little boring, if I'm totally honest, because it's just plain stockinette, but it's quick, so it doesn't really, you're not suffering for all that long, if that makes sense. And I managed to knit the body out of the yarn that I had on hand. I knit one of the sleeves, and then I was halfway through the last sleeve, or not quite halfway, and I ran out of yarn, which if you've seen my previous episode of this, you'll know is a theme. It has happened to me frequently in my knitting life. And I'm trying to see which sleeve it is. It's this one. So one sleeve came out totally fine, all in the original yarn. And when I ran out of the yarn, I'm like, I have got to have some kind of black worsted weight wool that I could match up with this, right? I mean, that's a pretty basic thing to have. And happily, I had some that I had thrifted. I had some Naturally Caron Country yarn, which is an acrylic wool blend, but the color was really close. So the color matched great. It was actually a density difference. So I can actually see it. You can see it right there. See that line? That is where I changed to the other yarn. And one of them it is just a tighter stitch. I don't really know how else to describe that. And in person though, once it's on your arm, you would never see it. It's only if I like hold it up to the light, which I don't think you can even because it's all in the sweater. I could see it before I seamed everything together. But yeah, it was one of those headaches that you think at the time, like, oh my gosh, my project is ruined. And then I got it done and you would literally never know. This sweater is seamed together, which I had not done very much before, but it has this really cute puffed sleeve. And Sydney does have a video where she walks you through how to do that. It also has a pleat at the sleeve cuff. And this came out really cute. I did end up having to go in though on the sleeves. The cuffs were they stuck away from my arm. They didn't nip in enough. And I don't know if that's just that I didn't do the measurements right, or if I needed to go down a needle size or something and I missed that in the directions. That's entirely possible. So I don't think the fault of the pattern, but I was able to fix that by going in with black elastic thread. And thankfully you can't even see that on the inside, but there are 2 strands of black elastic thread that I just threaded into the purl stitches underneath the ribbing. You can't see it at all from the front, and it did just enough to pull it in tighter to my arm to get the sleeve to poof properly. I do think that the shoulders came out a little bit wide with this being a bolero. I'm very narrow in the shoulders, and since boleros hang open anyway, I should have made that come in a bit. And so the sleeves do give me kind of a linebacker type of shape because of that poof, like I find with a poofy sleeve, you really want it to start right here on your shoulder, or else it looks like your shoulders are a lot wider than they are. But since this is a sweater that doesn't button, it just kind of looks like that's how it fits. It doesn't look strange. But all in all, I enjoyed this pattern. I think it's a very cute design. If I have a dress that I want to have a bolero for, I will absolutely reach for this pattern again. I think that this pattern would be really cute in a cotton because I live in Florida. So that's probably something that I will try in the future if I have kind of like minimal amounts of yarn. This sweater took 740 yards, which for a worsted weight, that's not a lot of yarn to get a sweater on your body. So this one had a few little issues. I do wear it though, but it is kind of a winter time only since it's wool. But yeah, I definitely liked the pattern. I liked the whole experience. And if you've been around this channel for any amount of time, you'll know I'm a Squid School of Vintage Knitting addict. I love her sweater designs. So I can definitely recommend this pattern if you need a cute bolero. This next sweater is one that I knitted completely on a whim as a Christmas sweater. So this is the Chuck sweater. This is an Andi Satterlund design again, and it is cropped, fitted, 3/4 sleeve. It's just a very cute 50s style, like jersey sweater. And I had this pattern for years. She brought the pattern out back when I was a brand new knitter, but I never wanted to knit a pullover. And since this had a cable design, I knew that I couldn't like steek the front. I really like the cable down the middle is the whole point of this pattern. And I really just wanted to use up this yarn. I bought this yarn for a different Andi Satterlund pattern when she had a knit along when I was a very new knitter, and I thought that it was going to be much more like Kelly Green when I ordered it. I ordered it online from Webs. This is Cascade 220, which was the recommended yarn for the other pattern that I made. I think it is the recommended yarn for this one too. And that's like one of the only times that I've ever ordered the recommended yarn for a pattern. I usually always substitute, but I bought 3 skeins of this because the sweater that I was planning on making was the Myrna, which is a cropped V-neck short sleeve cardigan. So it really didn't take all that much yarn. And then when I was so disappointed with the color, this yarn just sat in my stash for years. And so in Christmas of 2023, I thought, you know what? This would make a really cute Christmas sweater. Why don't I just knit a cropped chuck sweater? And so I did. Andy's patterns are knitted top down and seamless. So I was able to start at the shoulders, connect, knit down, and then her pattern shows only doing 2 of these large cables, but I have a long torso. And so I was kind of playing around with, do I risk not having enough yarn and extending it? Or do I have it always be several inches short and feel like I look like a doofus? And I decided to extend it and just risk having shorter sleeves. So I added an extra repeat of the cable pattern. And it happened to all work out just fine. I did use every speck of the 3 skeins of this yarn, so it took 660 yards. I still got 3/4 length sleeve. It goes kind of just past my elbow, but I really ended up liking this sweater, and it's one of the very few pullovers that I've ever made. Again, though, therefore I just don't get to wear it very much. It's a cold weather only sweater because it's worsted weight, 100% wool, and I can't remove it if I get hot. So I think this looks really cute with a collared button-up shirt underneath it. And yeah, I was really happy to wear it at Christmas in 2023. And I've worn it a little bit since then, not a ton, but I'm happy that this yarn finally found purpose. And I do like this sweater. It's just not super practical for life in Florida. The final sweater that I have for you today is one that I have always had very mixed feelings about. This one, I think, is the longest I ever took to finish a sweater. So this is the Endearment cardigan. Endearment is a pattern by Hannah Massajuska. I think that's how you say her name. And it's a really pretty lace front sweater. It has cables and lace that lean each way. They zigzag. And it also has a really cute split in the cuff and in the back. And I had always wanted to make this sweater. And this was another case of I had this yarn in my stash and I really wanted to use it. And it seemed like I would have enough for this sweater. So I put the 2 together. I started this sweater in February of 2020. And I actually have very vivid memories of starting this and where I was, like people I was with and things like that. And things were going great until I had to change skeins. So this was another case of a hand-dyed yarn that I mean, they were all the same dye lot. That's what's crazy, but this is a hand-dyed yarn. I guess I should say what the yarn is. So I bought 3 skeins of Oricania Huasco Botany Lace Multi. This is the Carmine colorway, and it was in the clearance at Webb's, and I just thought it was pretty. I was a very new knitter. I didn't really understand how variegated yarns would look when they were knitted. And when I knitted this, it gave very much girl camo vibes, which is not really my thing. There's nothing wrong with that, but I grew up in the 90s when camo was an established trend, and I just hate. I never wear camo. It's a matter of principle. But I still liked how it was coming across. I think that the lace broke up the camo enough that I was happy with it. And I just wanted to get this yarn out of my stash. So everything was great until I needed to switch skeins of yarn. And I am sure that you can see where the new skein started. Look at it's a little more subdued of a color here. And it just feels not only less vibrant, but like the stretches of purpley pink are shorter. And then we get into this, and it's just way more bold. So I was kind of mad about that, and I set it aside for months because I didn't know what to do about it. I tried, alternating skeins, and it just didn't make a difference. It was such a stark contrast that it was too much to hide by alternating. So I just went along and I knit the body. I was just dedicated, probably like a year later, I was dedicated to finishing this. And then I got to where I needed to pick up the sleeves. And it turned out that my final skein was even darker than the body. I don't know if I can hold it to where you can see that. Again, the color distribution, there's way more big spaces of gray in this skein than there was even in this one. And it's darker. And so I'm putting that right next to the more subdued color. It sticks out like a sore thumb to me even now when I'm showing it on the camera. And I was so mad and I didn't know what to do. And so I sat it aside again until 2022 when I was just like, you know what, I'm going to finally buckle down and finish that sweater. And I did. And, it still isn't necessarily my favorite thing. I think it came out nice. I do wear this sweater. I really love this lace and cable design on the front. I did back the button bands with the gray, and I had these really cute, slightly purpley mother of pearl shank buttons, and they work great. I actually even love the two button spacing of the buttons. Just everything about this, I really liked it if it had just been a little more even toned. And so that was definitely a lesson to me that I need to start off hand-dyed skeins by alternating them. Because if I had alternated from the beginning, yes, it would have been a lot more to juggle, but all of that would have been distributed way more evenly. That said, though, I've never had a single person tell me, wow, that sleeve looks way darker than the top of this sweater. Like nobody notices these things unless they make clothes. So it is a lovely yarn. It's very soft. I can definitely recommend the pattern. It's a beautiful pattern. It just, in my inexperience, did not come out quite how I was hoping it would. So those are my 5 sweaters for today. I hope that you found this interesting. I know that I really like seeing things that other people have made and what the particulars are, how it worked out, So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe if you want to see more in this series as I go through all the different sweaters that I have made since I started knitting sweaters. And until next time, I hope that all of your sweaters turn out as wonderfully as you envision them.